In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
It was Helen Keller who said, "Of all the senses, sight must be the most delightful." Think about that for just a moment. What a delight it is to see the world, to see the bare branches spring forth in an abundance of greens and fall forward into shades of ambers, reds, and browns. To witness a baby as it develops into a child, then a teen, and into adulthood. To see how our own hands change as they age. To be taken into imaginary places because of words on a page or paint on a canvas. Oh, what a delight it is to see. I look around and I see that most of us need a little help. I didn't start wearing glasses until I was in my 20s. Jeff started wearing his before he started kindergarten. We knew that it was inevitable that our kids would need glasses. And it was. Jeff's mom had cataract surgery and cornea transplants. His dad wore glasses. My dad has had cataract surgery too. It's probably inevitable that either of us or even both of us will need eye surgery at some point in our lives to help us see. Shortly after our daughter Erin was born, I learned that one of my macula is deformed. It has a hole in it, like a small tear in a piece of cheesecloth, so I need to have tests annually to ensure that it doesn't change or degenerate. In over 22 years it hasn't, but it doesn't mean it won't. I think about what it would mean to lose my eyesight, to no longer delight in the beauty as well as acknowledge the scars found in all of creation. Thinking about all that I've seen and all that I would like to see, losing my sight would be very disappointing. And it would be challenging, but not impossible to learn to live in a visually darkened world. It might be humbling to learn to rely on others as parts of my independence would change. I would miss faces and all that can be found in nonverbal communication. Learning how to use other senses could be aggravating, mysterious, and an adventure. Letting go of some of the parts of myself while grasping or clinging to new ways of being would certainly be an exercise in trust. I know people who have lost their ability to see with their eyes, who must rely on others for transportation, who have learned to adapt their way of living. Some maintain as much independence as they can, participating in activities even though they can't see, trusting that others will keep them safe, living their lives with as much gusto as they can muster. My friend Marguerite, who has age-related macular degeneration, amazes me. She can see forms and shapes but isn't able to clearly pick out features, and yet somehow, when someone approaches her, she often knows them before they speak. She goes to church and she sings what she knows because she was in choir for years. She prays the words she knows because she has been a part of her church her whole life. And she joyfully embraces the people who are around her because she knows their love for her and her love for them. She goes on field trips with her friends from church. They go to concerts and points of interest, and she gleans from all she hears and what little she sees to always, always learn and grow. She gave up living on her own, and now she lives with her daughter. That change in independence came out of necessity. I'm sure that both she and her daughter have struggled as they've navigated this new version of their relationship, their new normal. Each has their own life, but they must rely on one another, communicate well, and trust in different ways. I can only imagine how their relationship has transformed in recent years. I don't know if Bartimaeus was as active as Marguerite, but he certainly wasn't missing out on what was happening around him. Somehow he recognized Jesus, calling out to be noticed by Jesus. And when the people around him tried to shush him, Bartimaeus shouted all the louder. Unlike the first healing of a blind man in the Gospel of Mark, Bartimaeus wasn't blind his whole life. We don't know what caused his blindness. Could it be that he had age-related macular degeneration? Did he have an accident or an injury? Was his blindness hereditary? Those are some things we will never know. It is possible that in his blindness he lost his position in the community because anyone who was no longer able to contribute to society was often shunned, put on the street, and separated from the synagogue and the common life. If he had a family, they too might have become destitute because of his blindness. Bartimaeus was not like all who were lost due to circumstances beyond their control. He was persistent, and he advocated for himself, even and especially when others wanted him to remain silent and hidden. He wanted to be restored to wholeness, not unlike the hemorrhaging woman who touched Jesus, or the woman who advocated for her children even after Jesus called her a dog. Restoration to the community was everything. Jesus is all about love, all about loving one another, all about being in relationship with one another as a reflection of our love for God. When God's children are separated from society, from their faith, from relationships, Jesus calls attention to that separation, answering their call for help in ways that restore individuals to their community. Jesus helps the blind to see, the lame to walk, the women to be healed, heard, and seen, the orphans to be cared for, the refugee to be welcomed, the hungry to be fed, the outcast to be noticed, the children of all to be loved. Jesus invites all of them, all of us, to follow him and be changed. Jesus invites us to throw off our cloaks, leap up, and run with our deep need to remove the obstacles that keep us from seeing and feeling and living in God's love. Helen Keller is also known to have said, "Once I knew only darkness and stillness. My life was without past or future. But a little word from the fingers of another fell into my hand that clutched at emptiness, and my heart leaped to the rapture of living." Bartimaeus sprang up with his empty hands outstretched, his darkened eyes readied to be opened. And he chose to not only go, but follow, to live in the light and delight of Jesus. Let us pray. Jesus, before and after the reading of the gospel this morning, we sang these words: "I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. grace. Thank you for that grace. Because grace, when we think about it, is what it means to be recognized, to be known, to be found, to be loved by you. Amen.